You're right, folks, and welcome back. So, this is something I plan to do throughout the duration of the beta in one form or another. As the title suggests, it's going to be a log of sorts, and I hope to release them alongside other videos and whatnot. They're short and sweet updates for those interested, and just a way for me to jot down my feedback as well, because those little blue boxes can only do so much. It's also the first chance I've had to properly sit down and get stuck into the beta, because if you remember, I mentioned that thing about a firstborn child. Yeah, he arrived a couple of days ago, so my oh-so-precious schedule has been dashed yet again. Either way, let's crack on, shall we? So, as I said in my last video, the only thing on the beta at the moment is the 1 to 18 levelling in the Cata version of the world. However, Worgen and Goblin are now available for play, but the starting zones are quite buggy at the moment, more so than those of the other races already in the game, even if the zones attached to those races were updated as well. The primary issue seems to be phasing. In the Worgen starting zone, for example, there have been several points where I just couldn't continue due to iffy phasing. The biggest spot of wonky phasing thus far that I've seen is surrounding the Allen Farmstead quests, where you get that unpleasant earthquake and then that area gets drowned. However, at the moment, there is just no water. The land sunders and the people float in the air. There are even some bubbles, but the H2O is notably absent. Many people have fallen victim to this bug, either by falling into the cracks and quite literally breaking all the bones in their bodies, or just by getting wedged somewhere you can't get out of. Now, the quest you need to do to rescue the NPCs is actually doable. You'll need to do some hardcore parkour, but yeah, you can do it. Unless that is you have a similar bug to the one that I do at the moment. I can't actually pick up the drowning henchman. I was able to, but I mistimed a jump with one on my back, fell down a crag, and died very stickily. After that, no such luck in being able to pick up the mobs again. I've abandoned the quest and done all the usual things you try when a quest doesn't work, but nada. So, my Worgen mage is currently dead in the water for the time being. Because of that, I went and made a dwarf shaman, and he is going to be the character I take all the way to 80 for testing purposes. So, things to report from him then. Whilst the world itself has been updated and looks nice and explodey, a number of systems still seem to be operating as if it were Wrath. We still have things like weapon skills, for example. Now, I didn't actually notice this myself until I was like level 10, because I knew they were removed this expansion, so I didn't really go looking for them, and I kind of just blocked them out, it seems. But once I picked my spec and started dual wielding, I was rather surprised to see my skill in maces increasing with every strike. This isn't going to be sticking around, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes poof in the next week or two. But this does lead me on to something a bit more substantial, and that is the leveling itself. Now, I'm not level 80 yet, so this could change, but I have leveled a lot, both in Classic and its many forms, and a hell of a lot in Original Cata. One of the big mind-blowing takeaways I had from that expansion was, holy shit, I'm leveling at a madman's pace, even from the earliest level. And that's not the sensation I was getting from my recent exploits. It didn't feel any different to Wrath or even TBC leveling to a degree. I know at the moment we've got Joyous Journeys, and you might think that's what's confusing things here. And that's a good point, but the only tunes I've leveled with that active were 70 plus, and they had heirlooms and all sorts, so I was planning on hammering those guys out. What I'm referring to is that this feels like alts and other things I've leveled either in TBC or in Wrath without that experience buff. But once I hit level 10, went enhancement, got all the bells and whistles that go with that, my kill speed did go through the roof, but I'm still not entirely sure the XP is right, however. There were times on the mage and my shaman where I felt a level or so behind where I should have been. We'll see how it goes as I level. I'm going to take my little shaman through all of my old routes because I know how quick they were back in the day, but I'm just not entirely sure the numbers are as they should be right now. And I'm not the only one who thinks this either. There are quite a lot of people in general chat, guild chat, you know, the usual places people go for a grumbling game who are airing similar concerns that it's just not quite as rapid as memory would have them believe. That could quite easily be down to the amount of people proclaiming Cata as this sort of paragon of speed leveling, and, you know, as such, hopes are being set a bit too high. But this is beta, so it could very well also be that the numbers just aren't quite as they should be, but we will find out as things progress. And I want to go back to the Worgen for a moment, and this is a small thing, but something I am personally very grateful for. The appearance of the Worgen and human forms of the playable race are not linked like they were in original Cataclysm, and actually I believe up until Shadowlands. What does that string of words mean then? So, originally, when you changed the appearance of your Worgen, be that at character creation or at the barbers, the changes were linked. So, if you changed the face or fur colour of your Wolfman, it would also alter the appearance of the human form hiding beneath. In the Cata beta at the moment, those two things are separate, as they are in retail, meaning that you can customise your Worgen and your human forms within the confines of Cataclysm's options separately, and altering a feature on one will not impact the other. I like this, plain and simple. I always hated that my Worgen's human forms looked like dribbling idiots because my Worgen form had a certain kind of ear. And assuming this is intended and not some sort of back-end bug, you won't have to sacrifice the look of one of the forms for the sake of the other, or try to reach a middle ground for both that you're not entirely sold on. The only other thing I think they should do for the Worgens is to add a chosen form ability, much like they did for the Drakthea. So at the moment in retail, Worgen are Worgen. You can turn human if you so please, but the second you enter combat, it's all fangs and fur and fleas. And even once combat ends, you remain looking like a bedraggled spaniel. The Drakthea, though, they have an additional ability to their form swap, which allows them to select a quote-unquote chosen form, and as the name suggests, they can still turn into skinny salamanders for combat purposes, but the second it ends, if you favour your visage, you immediately return to elf mode. It's not a big thing, but it would be cool if Worgen also get something like that. One more thing of note, because I do not recall it being a thing in original Cata, but when I was fiddling around in the beta, certain mobs for certain quests seem to have a shared tag. Now, I only noticed this in the Worgen starting area and not in Dunmoreau on me dwarf, but the quest in the chapel just before you get your Worgen form, you've got to kill 8 of the attacking Worgen. It seems those ads share a tag, and again, I cannot remember this being a thing. In fact, as far as I can recall, it was quite the opposite. Same thing to be said for the Dark Ranger NPC just before the Alan Farmstead bug I mentioned earlier. I joined another player's kill of that without actually being in the party, and I got credit and loot. But again, I recall that particular mob being one that had a queue back in the day. My memory could just be utter crap, but it may be that some tweaks along these lines are something that we can expect going forward. Guild perks are also out for testing, but guild leveling is not. Like I said, with weapon skills, the UI and general usage of this system is still as it is in Wrath, with the exception of guild achievements. But as of right now, all perks are available the moment you make a guild. So if you get in the beta and fancy testing leveling, it's worth getting in a guild just for the perks alone. But this also adds to what I was saying about the leveling feeling off right now. In a guild, with all the perks, including the XP ones, it doesn't feel any different to Wrath without Joyous Journeys. But again, this could just be me, and we will see how it goes as I level onwards. Also, in a video I made many moons ago now, I mentioned Reforging and the original Reforging NPC, which could be found in Capital City's Enchanting Trainer. Those NPCs are still around in Cata Classic, as they were by the end of original Cata, but it looks like we will be using the Ethereals instead, as I theorised might be the case in that video. As of right now, Reforging, Transmog and Void Storage are disabled, so you can't fiddle around with them. But if you go find the original Reforging NPC for your faction, he'll point you in their direction, you go find them, and all of those guys are there. So yeah, looks like it'll just be a case of using the Ethereals this time. But that's me for this one, folks. Do let me know your thoughts down below. Right now, as leveling is the only thing to really test properly, my aim is to get to Outland and Northrend. But I don't want this to turn into a beta leveling series because, good God, no thank you. But I will be spending a bit of time getting my little dwarf up, so if anything noteworthy crops up whilst I do that, I will be sure to report on it. But the priority right now is to take a look at the 60 to 80 bracket properly. But I do hope as things progress, Blizzard will let us make 60 and 70 pre-made to test any changes to leveling in those regions, because sod leveling multiple times just to test and retest those 20 levels. Anyway, if you use the comment, like, sub, show your pals and so on, that'd be grand. Have a good one, folks. Bye for now.